This program is made possible through generous donations from viewers like you. To pledge your support, please visit aroodawakening.tv/give. Thank you.
Exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. Not a moment too soon, not a moment too late. That's the way the Almighty does things, today and in biblical times too. In fact, we're going to see how the Old Testament story of Esther sets the stage for a miracle Yeshua, Jesus, performed at the perfect time, despite that everyone assumed that all was lost. Exactly like the situation Esther found herself in. Speaking of perfect timing, it's now the end of the 6th day. The sun is set, and this is Shabbat Night Live!
Michael, it's going to be a great show tonight.
It will be.
Stand by, studio, 30 seconds.
Thank you. Michael?
Oh, thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Ellie.
Shabbat Shalom to our fans. Welcome to Shabbat Night Live. This is the anniversary of when Yeshua, Jesus, raised Lazarus from the dead. It is also the time of the Hebrew feast of Purim. What is Purim? What is it all about? What is it not about? Well, we'll get into all that in just a minute with my co-host for this evening, the Director of Ministry Development for A Rood Awakening International, Annie Reed. Welcome, Annie.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, you know what? There's some folks joining us tonight for the first time, I understand.
That's right. If you've joined us for the very first time, or if you've seen us in the past and just never reached out to us, we have some free teachings that we'd like to send to you. One is on the Red Sea crossing. Did you know that we now have physical proof of the actual Red Sea crossing and the location of it? Also,
on video
and Sodom and Gomorrah. Michael Rood takes you there in person. He's there at the physical location of Sodom and Gomorrah during those teachings. So you get 2 teachings, 30-minute teachings each, absolutely free. And we'll also send you a catalog. And it gives you further information about A Rood Awakening. You have this little handout with new product, but the catalog itself will give you information about who we are, what we represent, all of our different programs, and just teachings that we have available for you and your household.
Right, and it's essentially everything we have online on our online store is in that catalog. So if you prefer to have a catalog in your hand and read it at your leisure rather than looking at something on a screen, that's perfect. And just you can put one in your car, put one at home, wherever you like.
That's right. Just contact us on the phone number below. There's no strings attached. We just want to get the word out to you and your household.
Absolutely. Now, we mentioned it's Purim. So Purim is all about coming back when all seems lost. For example, this is when Lazarus was raised from the dead. And we'll get into the correlation between that and the story of Purim in just a minute. But I think what is even more fascinating than that is the timing of all of this. Most people do not realize that, Yeshua raised Lazarus just 9 weeks before his own crucifixion and resurrection. It's almost as if Yeshua was prepping people to get ready for something spectacular at Passover, which is, of course, when he was killed and raised from the dead. Now, speaking of Passover, we are getting ready to commemorate Yeshua's death and resurrection in just a few weeks' time. Tell us who's coming.
That's right. We have Kent Hoven, Josh Tolley, Mary Hoven, Bill Cloud, Chris Knight, who will take care of our youth. We have an exceptional kids program. We have Steve Mutria that will be there, and of course, our very own Michael Rood. We're excited to have you. If this is your first time celebrating Passover, celebrate it with us. It's an event unlike any other. You'll join us and 400 other individuals and really understand the meaning of Yeshua's death, his resurrection, and what it means for us in today's day and time.
Yeah, Michael does a really great job of bringing you right back to that time. It's almost like stepping into a time warp. We'll go back and we really set the stage, and it's like being there as Michael tells the story with details that most people have never heard before. And you'll get a really well-rounded picture of Passover.
That's right. I've been doing Passover for about 10 years now. And I've never done Passover like Michael Rood's Passover event. Whether I attended as a guest or as an employee, nothing like it. And I've visited many other organizations and churches, and even done it at home. Even doing it at home is not the same.
Right.
So,
And even if you've been with us before, come again because Michael has a new way of doing it this year.
yeah, that's
So
right.
you'll
And
be
we have new
surprised.
guests.
That's right. We have new guests. It's going to be awesome. So get there early because Friday we're having a health event. Basically, I'll be doing a talk on how to redeem your health after maybe something's gone wrong with your health. Here's how you can reverse things. Mary Hovind, who's Kent Hovin's wife, is an expert on vaccines. She'll be talking about that. We're going to do that all Friday before things get started. So get there early. It's April 14th to 16th, and we're going to have an ambassador event as well.
After the Seder, if you're an Ambassador Club member, we'd love for you to join us at this reception with Michael and guests. We'd love to just thank you, to meet you personally, and really interact with you. These are the people that keep us on the air.
That's right.
And we are very grateful for your sacrifice, for your commitment to this ministry, and for giving us the opportunity to come to your home every single evening and just bless you.
That's right. So we have an all-new Ambassador Club, and we will get into details on the next Shabbat Night Live, perhaps.
That's
Now,
right.
tonight, Michael Rood will be speaking about Purim, and it's actually the focus of our Love Gift this month, too. This month's Love Gift features a new teaching from Michael Rood called Purim, the Lazarus parable, just as we talked about the correlation between those two events. Very few people realize that Yeshua raised Lazarus from the dead during the Feast of Purim, which commemorates the bravery of Queen Esther when she went before the king and she wasn't supposed to and actually saved all of the Hebrew people. It happened for a very specific reason. We'll get into that in just a minute. You'll get this teaching for a donation of $50 or for a donation of $100. You'll get the teaching plus a beautiful scroll of the book of Esther. It's called a Megillah.
Yes.
And the Megillah is, this one's beautiful. It's in a wooden case. It's got a leatherette front. It's all embossed, and it's got a beautiful picture there of Esther approaching the king. And inside is the entire book of Esther on a scroll, which we call the Megillah.
And the scroll is beautiful. The paper is beautiful. The illustrations are outrageous. It's a wonderful piece. I'm not sure how you celebrate Purim at your home. For many of us, we celebrate Purim by just reading the book of Esther. And this is a perfect opportunity. We have a Megillah at home. That's when we pull it out. We do some Bible study together as a family and really dive into the story. My favorite book in the Bible, one of my favorite stories altogether. And it's just for a donation of $100 or more. You'll get this beautiful Megillah, beautiful scroll for you and your family to make memories.
And incidentally, if you took advantage of the bonus gift we had in December, that Torah, that beautiful Torah with the emblem on the front, it's a perfect match.
That's right.
It's a beautiful thing to have. So get the Megillah, there it is. And so call the number on the bottom of your screen, or you can go online to roodawakening.tv/lovegift. Now, speaking of Passover and Purim, our story from the chronological Gospels tonight happens right around Purim, and that story correlates with our astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar. There it is right there. Today is the second Shabbat in the month of Adar, and that means that Monday is Purim, this coming Monday, which is when something very significant happened in Yeshua's ministry. It's event number 149 in the chronological Gospels. Now, you wanted to mention the chronological Gospels, some different charts that are in this thing that maybe people don't know about.
Yes, so I'm not sure if you how many are familiar with the chronological Gospels. I know that we've mentioned it a lot on Shabbat Night Live. This is Michael's masterpiece, truly. This book is incredible. The introduction will give you a real understanding of why it is significant to have the chronological Gospels, some of the fatal errors that were made, and there are some charts in here.
Right.
That will detail dates and the correlation, like we were mentioning, on a lot of these events. And the significance, like this one in particular, is about Daniel's 70-week ministry or 70-week prophecy. Towards the back, you have a lot more charts.
Yeah, now hold on to that page for a minute. I'll get to that. We're going to show you something here. This is interesting. So this is a piece of the 70-week ministry. I don't know if you can see that on your screen or not, but it's a piece of the 70-week ministry that Michael says that, Yeshua's ministry was 70 weeks. And it makes a lot of sense because when you see this, it's one event after the other. There's all kinds of action going on, which is, when you read the Gospels, that's what was happening. And then Annie has a chart in the beginning of the chronological Gospels that supposes, well, okay, if we believe the 3.5-year ministry of Yeshua, this is what it would look like. And there's all these dead spaces where Yeshua didn't do a thing for 6 months. Well, come on.
That's right.
If he's really raising a fuss in the land of Judea in the time that he was, do we really think the Pharisees, first of all, are going to let that go for 3.5 years? I don't think so. The more you read the chronological Gospels, the more you realize that the 70-week correlation of Yeshua's ministry is spot on.
Not to mention, inside you'll see very detailed information about the passage that you're about to read. It is in chronological order according to every single gospel
author. Mm-hmm.
And so you read it as it's happening. You don't have to go back and forth between each book.
Right. It's like watching a screenplay of Yeshua's ministry. It's really quite
That's
interesting.
a great way to put it. It's a screenplay, really.
Now, speaking of episode 149, each episode in Yeshua's life is numbered in here, and the one where he raises Lazarus is episode 149. When everyone had given up on Lazarus and all seemed lost, he was dead. He was in the grave for 4 days. Yeshua steps in and saves the one whom everyone thought was gone for good. And because of it, everyone's faith was strengthened, and they went on to destroy the work of the enemy everywhere they went as disciples of Yeshua. And it's the very same thing that happened in the book of Esther. Now, before we get into that story, we have the story of Esther on DVD.
I love this teaching. If you love the book of Esther, if you don't understand it, if you haven't studied it in a while, it's a great teaching for you. It's 5 episodes, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
It is, yep. And episode 5 is a lot of fun.
Yes, it is. You'll get to see many of us in costume. But anyways, this 5-episode series is all about Vashti and Esther, the significance of Vashti's actions, Esther's humbleness and gracefulness as she approaches the king. Great story to read, especially if you're getting the love gift.
Oh, yeah, get the Megillah, read along. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and not to mention that this is, the story of Purim in the past in a biblical time period, which we consider the Old Testament in the Christian realm. And then the love gift teaching of Purim is our New Testament teaching. And, it's almost the fulfillment, the connection of why Purim was when it was and why it's so important, why it had to be put in the scriptures.
Yeah, and of course, Michael tells a story of Purim like he does every story in the Bible, like no one else. You'll hear details you've never heard before. So get it, it's a wonderful thing. Now, coming back to Lazarus, it's the very same thing that happened in the book of Esther. It's the same story, like Andy was just saying. The correlation is amazing. Haman devised a plan to kill all the Jews. All seemed lost, just like Lazarus being dead, and at the last minute, the Almighty destroys the enemy and provides a way for Esther, the bride of the king, to save her people. Not only that, but the edict is then given by the king that the people who belong to the bride's family are now authorized to destroy their enemies. How's that for turning the tables? It's a beautiful tie-in with Lazarus. All seems lost. The Almighty steps in. Exactly what is needed, exactly when they need it, just like we said in the beginning of the program. Now, coming up, Michael Rood presents Purim, the vanquishing of Vashti and the making of a king's bride. Tell your friends and family to watch this. It's a great story. And if they can't watch right now, tell them to watch the replay. You can do that too. roodawakening.tv/Shabbat. And before you go, we just want to say a big thank you if you have donated to this ministry. In fact, it's the only reason you're seeing this program. We have no corporate sponsors. You make it happen. And if that scroll of Esther seems like something you could use to share the truth at home with friends and family, you can get it right now, along with Michael's teaching on Purim. Here's how you can do that with your donation right now.
You are invited to an event that will stir your faith like nothing else. Passover, the road to redemption. Enjoy an amazing Passover feast as Michael Rood narrates the Messiah's final hours, death, and resurrection in detail you've never heard before. Tickets available online at PassoverCharlotte.com. Special guests include the biblical chronologist, Michael Rood. From Shorashi Ministries, Bill Cloud. From TorahFamily.org, Steve Mutria. From Freedom Hill Community, David Robinson. Plus, radio personality Josh Tolley. Creation scientist Kent Hovind. Vaccine expert Mary Hovind. Naturopathic doctor Scott Laird. Youth leader Chris Knight. And children's leaders Matthew and Bethany Hall. One ticket gives you access to everything all weekend long. Get tickets now online at PassoverCharlotte.com. Passover, the road to redemption, April 14th to 16th in Concord. Tickets are going fast. Get yours now at PassoverCharlotte.com. As the disciples prepare to commemorate Purim, the story of how Queen Esther's bravery saved the Israelites from certain death. Yeshua receives word that his friend Lazarus is gravely ill. Yet Yeshua does not come to his aid until all seems lost. Just like the story of Purim. This month, Michael Rood presents an exclusive new teaching, Purim, the Lazarus Parable.
This is one of the many times in the Gospel of John where a scribe added in a description that was not in the original text.
Purim, the Lazarus Parable is Michael Rood's new teaching from the 20-episode Love Gift Teaching Series. And the only way you can get it is with your Love Gift donation in March.
We have to understand what they, the scribes and Pharisees, teach. You know, they who will not see the kingdom of heaven, we have to understand what they're saying. The Torah says one thing, but how they read it can be something different.
Own Purim, the Lazarus Parable, right now when you give a Love Gift donation of $50 or more. Or donate $100 or more to get this new teaching plus the story of Esther on a scroll. A Megillah, concealed in an elegant wooden case. This scroll includes the entire biblical book of Esther, English on one side, Hebrew on the other, illustrated in full-color classic artwork. And the case features a leather-like wrap with gold embossing and a metallic seal depicting the story of Esther. Get this attractive showpiece now, plus Michael Rood's new teaching, Purim, the Lazarus Parable.
Whatever you give away, whatever you forfeit for me, you'll receive back 100-fold and shall inherit everlasting life.
Act now to get Michael Rood's new teaching, Purim, the Lazarus Parable, plus the Scroll of Esther. Hurry, this offer is only available in March. Make your Love Gift donation now, online or by phone.
You are invited to an event that will stir your faith like nothing else. Passover, the Road to Redemption. Enjoy an amazing Passover feast as Michael Rood narrates the Messiah's final hours, death, and resurrection in detail you've never heard before. Plus, kids activities, youth activities, and biblical teaching sessions all weekend long. You'll even learn how to make unleavened bread like they do in the Middle East. Passover, the Road to Redemption, April 14th to 16th in Concord. Tickets are going fast. Get yours now.
The former U.S. President Barack Hussein Obama, with his administration, identified 7 high-risk Muslim-majority countries, and it was found that ISIS had been infiltrating into groups, into refugee groups, and turning them in many different nations, including the United States of America. And so it was President Donald Trump that issued a 90-day ban as far as immigration from these countries while they assess the ability to be able to vet these people properly so that we were not bringing in and adding to the entire terrorism network here in the United States of America. Now, we also see that 6 of these 7 countries have a complete ban on Israeli Jews going into those countries as well. There are 16 countries that have a ban on Israeli Jews, and so we have an Israeli Jew here to speak on this topic, Nehemiah Gordon. Thanks for being with us, Nehemiah.
Hey, Michael, it's great to be here. You know, if you're an Israeli Arab, you can visit those 16 nations, but if you're an Israeli Jew, you are not allowed to enter 16 Muslim-majority nations. One of them is Dubai, which is supposed to be this like oasis in the Middle East. It's like a tourist center almost, Dubai. And I almost went there for a conference, and then I found out that if I was going to go on my U.S. passport, if they discovered that I was an Israeli citizen, I could have been arrested. Maybe beheaded, I don't know. Yeah,
you could do your own beheading video, couldn't you?
I decided I don't want to be a YouTube star where I get executed. Decided not to go to the United Arab Emirates, to Dubai, that supposedly peace-loving country. But, Michael, I got to tell you, one of the parts of this story that I'm hearing on the news in America is really, really offensive to me. I hear all these people who are comparing the executive order that President Trump issued the Jews in the Holocaust being denied entry, and as a result of that, 6 million Jews died.
Oh,
and what a lot of
goodness.
people, and I've even heard this from Jews. I was, in fact, speaking to a Jewish man yesterday, and he brought up the St. Louis. Now, if you don't know what that is, it was a ship, it was an ocean liner that left from Hamburg, Germany in 1939, before World War II started, a few months before the war, and it had something like 900 Jews on it, and it arrived in the United States and was turned away. And then it went to Cuba and it was turned away, and eventually to Europe. The Jews, and this was at a time when Jews were being severely persecuted in Nazi Germany. It was before they were really implementing on a broad scale final solution, so they were able to escape. But then they were sent back to Europe, and many of them died. And this is the analogy that I'm hearing over and over, that these people are fleeing especially from Syria. They're fleeing from Syria, and and this is just like the Jews. And I find that so deeply offensive, Michael. I find that offensive because the Jews during World War II had a country to go to. The Jews during the Holocaust had a place to go to. It was called, at the time, Palestine, or Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. And it wasn't the Americans who stopped them from going to the land of Israel. It wasn't the Cubans who stopped them from going to the land of Israel. It wasn't even the Germans, surprisingly, at first. It was the British. The British had conquered Israel in 1917 with the help of the Jews. The Jews actually helped them conquer it. They showed them where the springs were in the Negev, and they helped them conquer Israel. And then the British got what was called the Mandate of Palestine by the League of Nations, which was the equivalent of the United Nations at the time. And part of the purpose of the League of Nations mandate over Palestine was to make a Jewish homeland in Palestine, which the British had openly promised they would do in the Balfour Declaration. It was confirmed by the Arab side in the Faisal-Weizmann Accords. And then the British turn around and they issue what was called the White Papers. And this is where I can see people making the analogy. They'll compare the White Papers to the executive order by Trump. The White Papers were a decree that Jews are not allowed to their native homeland. And if you have to blame, if anyone is to blame besides the Nazis, I mean, look, the Nazis have 99.99% of the blame for killing the Jews in the Holocaust, but the British also bear some of that blame, because there were Jews who could have escaped to the land of, and they were prevented from doing so by the White Papers. They issued 3 major White Papers, 1922, 1930, and then the worst one was in 1939. The 1939 White Paper limited Jewish immigration to the land of Israel, to Judea, to 7,500 people over a 5-year period. And at the time, the Jews understood exactly what this meant. I want to read to you from the response of the Jewish Agency, which is the major Jewish organization in Israel at the time, to the 1939 British White Paper, preventing Jews from escaping Nazi Germany. And it's not a fair analogy to compare this. I just want to say this, to compare this to the people escaping from Syria. The Jews had one place to go. The people who are escaping Syria, let's face it, the Jews had one Jewish country.
At least 40 Arab nations they could go to.
Muslim nations they could go to. 20 plus Arab nations, 40 plus Muslim nations that they can go to, not to mention all the other countries in the world. I don't know why this is America's responsibility to take in 100,000 Syrian refugees. I can tell you what's happened in Europe. In fact, I won't even tell you. Guys, look it up. What's happened to Europe. Look up Malmo, Sweden. It was a place where there's about 1,000 Jews, and it was flooded with refugees, and now Jews literally can't walk down the street because they're physically attacked. Anyway, I want to read you the response of the Jewish Agency to the 1939 British White Paper. This was the decree by the British, this evil decree preventing Jews from coming into their own native homeland. The response was, at the time, they said, the new policy of the British denies to the Jewish people the right to rebuild their national home in their ancestral country. It puts up a territorial ghetto for Jews in their own homeland. Now, this is key to understanding why, when we have these discussions about Jews in the West Bank, so-called West Bank, building settlements, and they say, oh, no, you Jews aren't allowed to live in East Jerusalem. You Jews aren't allowed to build a home in the land of Judea. So the gut response of Jews is, okay, we've been through this before. You're telling us we can live. This is what led to our massacre in the Holocaust by the Nazis, but with really with the culpability of the British. They go on, the Jewish people regard this policy as a surrender to Arab terrorism because the policy was implemented. The Arabs massacred Jews. The British said, okay, we just won't allow any more Jews to come in. They go on, is it a policy in which the Jewish people will not acquiesce? Let me skip ahead. They say it is in the darkest hour of the Jewish people the British government proposes to deprive the Jews of their last hope and to close the road back to their homeland. They knew exactly what this meant. They knew it would be the death of the Jews of Europe. They go on, the historic bond between the people and the land of Israel cannot be broken. The Jews will never accept the closing to them of the gates of Palestine, nor let their national home be converted into a ghetto. They're still trying to do today, Michael. The Jewish pioneers will from now on display the same strength in defending Jewish immigration, the Jewish home and Jewish freedom. Michael, what you may not know, and we don't have time to talk about today, but there was something called the Ha'pala, or the Ma'pilim, and that was the illegal Jewish immigration into what was called Palestine. There's a movie out there called Exodus from 1960. Guys, go watch the movie Exodus 1960. It's an amazing movie about the Jews sneaking into the land of Israel because they had nowhere to go. And so I'm actually in favor of illegal immigration of the native population back to their homeland. I'm not in favor of illegal immigration into somebody else's country, but I am in favor of an indigenous population getting into their homeland, whatever it takes.
And I think that as far as securing the United States of America and doing our best to keep out those who want to overthrow this government and destroy our way of life, and those who, this nation is based on God-given rights and responsibilities, which is based on the Hebrew Scriptures. So that's where it all starts out, ladies and gentlemen. And if a person does not believe in God-given rights and wants to put us under another form of government, and this is exactly what our founding fathers said. Thomas Jefferson said we are going to have to deal with this Muslim situation again because it is a different worldview. If there are no God-given rights, there are government-given rights or there are religion-given rights, but we are standing on God-given rights, and the United States of America and Israel are the two nations that are based on God-given rights and God-given responsibilities, and we have to take that responsibility seriously and take it back in our hands and make sure that we are secure as we can be at this point in time. Nehemiah, thanks for being with us, and may Yah continue to bless the land of Israel and continue to open the doors for the Jews to come back from all of the planet at their will.
Amen.
Amen. Bye now.
If you're like most people, watching Michael Rood's teaching on this stage was enough. You gave a donation or bought the latest teaching from A Rood Awakening International. But what happens on this stage is just the beginning. Your support does so much more. Let me show you. When you make a donation or a purchase from A Rood Awakening International, you enable us to send free teaching materials to less fortunate people all over the world. You're also helping to supply all of the materials necessary to burn the DVDs and Blu-rays and to support the people who put them all together and send them out.
In 3, 2, 1.
But before any of that can happen, your support does something else. This is our video editing and production department. Your support enables these professionals to use their talents to spread the gospel. Videos that gain and hold viewers' attention to understand the truth that they've been missing their entire lives. In fact, your donation does even more. All of the graphics you see on those videos, Michael Rood's famous biblical calendar, the newsletters you receive in the mail, and every email you receive comes from the communications department. Here too, your support enables these highly talented individuals to spread the gospel. And when you have a question about the Bible, or want to join the Ambassador Club, or just want someone to pray with, your support helps there too, employing our partner relations team, including people on the phones in North Carolina, Montana, California, and even Costa Rica. In fact, your support also empowers our entire international operations, promoting Michael's message in practically every Spanish-speaking country in the world. And it doesn't stop there. You're also enabling us to spread the truth throughout our operations in Europe and South Africa. So, the next time you make a purchase or a donation because of something you saw on this stage, remember that you're also supporting everything else that goes on backstage. Thank you for standing with us.
Thank you.
You are invited to an event that will stir your faith like nothing else. Passover, the Road to Redemption. Enjoy an amazing Passover feast as Michael Rood narrates the Messiah's final hours, death, and resurrection in detail you've never heard before. Plus, kids activities, youth activities, and biblical teaching sessions all weekend long. You'll even learn how to make unleavened bread like they do in the Middle East. Passover, the Road to Redemption, April 14th to 16th in Concord. Tickets are going fast. Get yours now.
As the disciples prepare to commemorate Purim, Yeshua receives word that his friend Lazarus is gravely ill. Yet Yeshua does not come to his aid until all seems lost. Just like the story of Purim. This month, Michael Rood presents an exclusive new teaching, Purim, the Lazarus parable.
This is one of the many times in the Gospel of John where a scribe added in a description that was not in the original text.
Own Purim, the Lazarus parable, right now when you give a love gift donation of $50 or more. Or donate $100 or more to get this new teaching, plus the story of Esther on a scroll concealed in an elegant wooden case.
We have to understand what they, the scribes and Pharisees, teach. You know, they who will not see the kingdom of heaven, we have to understand what they're saying. The Torah says one thing, but how they read it can be something different.
Act now to get Michael Rood's new teaching, Purim, the Lazarus parable, plus the scroll of Esther. Hurry!
Traditions that we inherited from Babylon through Constantine have us occasionally with a little plastic cup and a little round wafer in a church service having what is called communion. But Yeshua was not having communion with his disciples. It was the last meal before his crucifixion, which happened at the time the Passover lambs were being sacrificed the following morning. Yeshua took this opportunity to explain something that had been embedded in the Israelite culture for then over 1,000 years. Melchizedek brought forth bread and wine to Abraham, and he blessed the Most High, saying, Baruch atah Yehovah, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, ha'motzi lechem min ha'aretz. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. Yeshua said, this represents my body, which will be broken for you. As often as you do it in remembrance of me. And so, we break this bread, and we do it in remembrance of him. Likewise, Yeshua took the cup, and he blessed the Most High with that blessing that Melchizedek blessed the Most High. Baruch atah Yehovah, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, borei pari hagafen. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, the King of the universe, the creator of the fruit of the vine. Yeshua said, this represents my shed blood, which will be poured out for the remission of sin. I will not drink another drop of the fruit of the vine. You take my cup and divide it among yourselves, because I won't drink it until I drink it again with you in my Father's kingdom. The marriage supper of the Lamb, Yeshua will lift this cup, and he will say, L'chaim, to life everlasting. And until then, we remember what he's done, and remember that marriage supper of the Lamb. Get ready. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you will please take your Bibles and turn to the book of Hadassah. It is anglicized, her pagan name, Esther or Easter. And so we're going to now go into the very story that we bring about each time, this time of year, each year. And it was a little over 2,500 years ago. According to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which never changes, it can never be nullified, that it was Mordecai and Hadassah who said that all the Jews will keep this feast every year forever. Now, this isn't for all of Israel. Israel had been scattered, had been in captivity, but the Jews who were in slavery or taken away into captivity in Babylon, it is there that the story, that the events recorded in the book of Esther transpired, and it is to remember this every single year. Because, ladies and gentlemen, this has very prophetic significance for the last days as well. For the next 4 weeks, we are going to dig into Purim, the making of the king's bride, and tonight it is the vanquishing of Vashti. So we're going to start out with the book of Hadassah, as I like to call her by her Hebrew name, and we're going to find out how this young Jewish girl ended up with the name that represents the Babylonian goddess of fertility, Esther, or Esther. And so now we begin reading in chapter 1, verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this is the Ahasuerus which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia. This most likely is Xerxes. Because of the detail that we have here, this is Xerxes. Now remember, it is Xerxes that takes the 1,000,000-man army and then attacks Greece and is unable to bust through the 300 Spartans who are able to hold back the 1,000,000-man army until the Grecians are able to repel the army of Xerxes. But Xerxes, it says he reigns from India to the Indus River in India all the way to Ethiopia, over 120 provinces, 127 provinces. Now, we need to understand this, that this goes all through what is now modern-day Turkey, all the way down into the continent of Africa, all the way to the Indus River in India. These are 127 kingdoms. These are nations. These are not like little provinces or little states like in the United States. No, this is a vast, vast empire. And his 1,000,000-man army was said to have drank rivers dry. They would completely destroy all the vegetation as they went through an area just to feed this incredible army. But now it is a time of peace. And now he reigns over this entire area, 127 countries. And in those days, in verse 2, when King Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, which is Babylon, the palace, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast for all of his princes and all of his servants. The power of Persia and Media, all of the authority, the power, the kingship, all of the rulers, the nobles and the princes of the province being before him. And it says that when he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days, even 180 days, 180 days, he throws a party which involves all of the nobility, all of the grand viziers, all of the rulers and the under-rulers are brought together for a world's fair. 180 days, 6 months, this is when he is showing all the grandeur, all the majesty, all the glory of the greatest empire that reigns over the then known world. And this is what it looked like. And when these days were expired, these 180 days, these 6 months, world fair in which he's showing all the technology, all the majesty, all the glory. And remember, he has conquered all these different cultures. And the wealth of these cultures, the intellectual property of these cultures, the artisans, the artwork, everything that is in his domain are being exhibited, and this is such a grand and glorious occasion. Look how this thing transpires. When these 180 days, 6 months were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan the palace, both unto great and small. From the highest and those who lived in Babylon and Shushan in that area, at that point, everyone who was there participated in this. And it was a feast for 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace. Now we're going to see the court of the garden of the king's palace. He spares absolutely no expense on this. In verse 6 it says, where were white and green and blue hangings, fastened with cords of fine linen, and purple to silver rings and pillars of marble. So, you know, if you can imagine this grand garden of the king, where he has marble pillars that are made for this occasion. Beautiful, polished marble pillars. And on these marble pillars are beautiful silver rings. And through these silver rings are these linen cords. Now they have to be linen, which is much stronger than silk, because over the whole area, this is a party that goes on day and night for 7 days. And so they have to have shade. And so these beautiful, billowing white and green and blue silk fabrics floating in the wind, attached by these linen cords on these silver rings on marble. It is the most glorious environment for the culmination of everything that the king, the emperor, has to display in his kingdom. And it says the beds were of gold and silver. And now, what does this mean? The beds were gold and silver. Now, how do you get comfortable on a bed of gold and silver? Well, this particular servant's cap that I'm wearing, this is a fabric that came out of Damascus. In fact, it is Reuben Prager who was building some of the accoutrements in the restoration of some of the traditions and cultures of the Second Temple period. He built the aperion, or the royal wedding litter. And in order to build this, he had to have a fabric, and he went to a merchant who is a mutual friend of ours, who went all the way to Damascus to secure this. Now he had, when he finished the royal aperion, the royal wedding litter, he had just enough to make one servant's cover. He made it for himself, but it was too small. When I went in there, and Reuben was outfitting me for our television program in my begedivri, he put it on me and it fit perfectly. Ladies and gentlemen, this much of this fabric, 1 meter long, this wide, 60 centimeters, $600. Why? Because this is gold and silk. This is what this is made of. It's a fabric that is literally made of spun gold and silk. Now, I also have a little bit of the silver, the silver and the silk. And this is what these beds were made out of. Now, remember, it's day and night, 24 hours around the clock, and people do not sit in chairs in ancient Babylon. No, they are reclining on these beds. They are there for all the meals. They spend the night there, and each one of these beds were made of gold and silk and silver and silk. Each one of these beds would have been the equivalent in our day and time of $10,000. $10,000 he is spending on these couches for the people to sleep on and to recline on, to eat around the tables in this grand garden. And then it goes on to say, and he gave them, and upon the pavement of red and blue and white and black marble. And so now you've got all the artisans, the great artisans from the empire, who are putting a marble down with all these different colors and all these intricate patterns. This is like the one of the wonders of the world that we have never been able to see, because it was long ago destroyed. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another. Now, a gold vessel of the weight that would be necessary in our day and time, each one of these vessels was between $8,000 and $10,000 just in gold weight itself. But we're talking about each one of these being intricately done, beautifully done, every one of them different, every one of them an exquisite piece of artwork. You could expect in our day and time, because there are such artisans in the land of Israel who do this magnificent work today, you could expect anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 for every cup of which these grand kings are drinking from during this 7-day feast at the end of this 180-day extravaganza. And royal wine was in abundance, according to the state of the king. And he had the best Cabernet Sauvignon in the entire Mesopotamian valley, I guarantee you. And the drinking was according to the law. None did compel. Now, what does it mean? It doesn't mean that no one is compelled to drink. No, no one stopped anyone from drinking anything they wanted to have day and night for the entire period of time. This is the law. Whatever anyone wants, they get it. The best stuff in the entire empire is yours. This is the party of the emperor. All of the wealth of the empire is in his hands to show off and to treat his kings who are gathered for this very event. For so the king had appointed to all the officers of the house that they should do according to every man's pleasure, whatever they wanted. No, this is a buffet. This is, whatever is desired. This is what is made available. Also, Vashti, and the word Vashti means beauty, beautiful. But it's not just beautiful, it's ravishing beauty. And this is what this woman had going for her. She was an absolute stunning knockout, like the most gorgeous woman in the entire empire. And this is the name of the queen. Now, it's interesting that the name of Ahasuerus means, if I remain silent, I will become poor. And we're going to see what happens right here in the vanquishing of Vashti, that we understand his name and understand exactly what is going on. So Vashti, this ravishing beauty, the queen, made a feast for the women in the royal house which belonged to King Ahasuerus. And so, it's telling us, this palace, the royal house, it belongs to Ahasuerus. She married into this, and yet he gave her everything to throw a party for 7 days for the women. And again, anything that they wanted. There was nothing that was restrained from them. The men had their own party, the women had their own party. Sometimes that's a good way to do it. So the women get to talk about women things, the men get to talk about men things, and who knows what is going on in the women's court as far as the talk of the day. We can only imagine it, because these are the wives, the brides, the concubines of these kings that have been brought in. This is one elaborate party that is going on. On the 7th day, and this is, remember, 7-day feast, and this is the last day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine. It is now the end of the 6th month. It's the final day. This is the pinnacle of the celebration. He then commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbonah, Bigtha, Abagtha, Zethar, Carcass, the 7 chamberlains, who are the chief officers in the household of the king, his most trusted personal staff, and they were the ones that served in the presence of Ahasuerus, the king. And he commanded them to go and bring Vashti, the ravishing beauty, and bring the queen before the king with the royal crown. So this is an honor. They are going to place the royal crown upon Vashti, and she is going to be called in to show the people and the princes her beauty, for she was fair. She was more than fair. She was more than average. She was the stunning beauty, the knockout of the entire empire. And the king wants to bring her in a place of honor and to show her off because, let's face it, it's his trophy bride. He could have anyone. and this is his trophy. But we're going to see that, beauty sometimes is only skin deep. But the Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore, the king was very wroth, and his anger burned in him. Now, I've heard people say, well, she was afraid that she was going to get raped or something. Oh, are you out of your mind? The bride of the king being brought in a procession of honor. What did she do? She disrespected her husband. She disrespected the emperor in front of everyone. Who knows what had been going on with the chit-chat with these women in the other room, but she decides, I'm not going in. I don't care what he says. I'm going to do it my way. I want to, I've been drinking too. I don't want to go in. I look bad or whatever excuse was. Her husband brings her in at the culminating moment of this entire thing because he wants to show off his beautiful bride, and she disrespects him. And so now you understand why his anger burned in him. How could she do this to me? I'm the emperor. I get anything I want. And she's saying, no, she's not going to do it. Oh. Then the king said to the wise men, which knew the times. Now, it's not like they got a stopwatch on their arm or something, or a sundial in their pocket. No, these men are the ones that understand how to make laws to rule over an entire empire of people of diverse cultures. They are responsible to help the king hold things together with people with different religious systems. How do you make an empire work from the Indus River all the way to Ethiopia, all the way to Greece? How do you make this work? You have got to have some geniuses on your staff. And they realize the severity of what has just happened, and this cannot stand. So these men, which knew the times, so was the king's manner toward all those who knew law and judgment. And the next unto him was Karshina, Shathar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsina, and Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia, which always saw the king's face and which sat first in the kingdom. These are the brain trust. These are his most trusted advisors, the ones that are responsible to make sure the empire runs smoothly. And he said, what shall we do to Queen Vashti according to the law? Because she has not performed the commandment of the king. If I remain silent, I will become poor. That's his name. She has not obeyed the commandment. She has disrespected me in front of all these women and in front of all these kings and princes in the entire empire. And if I remain silent, I will become poor. In verse 16, and Memucan answered before the king and all the princes, Vashti, Vashti, this ravishing beauty you selected for your queen, hath not done wrong to the king only, but she has also wronged all the princes and all the people in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus. For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise. They will disrespect their husbands in their eyes. They will follow what the queen has done, and if this happens, we are in trouble. And when it is reported that the king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she did not come in, likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes which have heard of the deed of the queen, and they're going to do the same thing. This is why this is so severe. See, let me finish this. Thus shall there arise too much or an overabundance of contempt of women for their husband, in disrespecting their husbands, and the wrath that will ensue because it is turning about the entire framework of life. See, women need to be loved. And the love languages of women vary from one woman to another. You know, some women love gifts, some women love cuddling, some women love, tender words and cards. This is what men have to do, especially when they get married. After the honeymoon wears off, they've got to understand, what does it take to communicate my love for my wife? Because what I think my wife needs may not be what my wife needs at all. But all women need love. But men need respect. And if men don't get respect, that is is the number one cause of divorce and marriage breakup in the world. See, men being unfaithful to their wives in the workplace, it's not because they find a woman who is more beautiful. It's because if what is happening at home and in public, the woman is always disrespecting her husband, and if this disrespect goes on for so long, then the man's self-image and self-confidence then begins to go down, and it affects everything that happens in his life. And so if a woman in the workplace, she doesn't have to be a trophy wife like he already may have, but if a woman in the workplace will show respect to this man, that is the trap. A man will fall for that over and over and over again. And here, the most beautiful woman in the entire empire takes it upon herself to disrespect her husband in front of everyone, and we're going to find out that she is going to be discarded for this very thing. Let's continue on, because this is a lesson not only in ancient Mesopotamia, it is a lesson for today, because human nature does not change. Women need love, men need respect, and it has to be a two-way street. Perhaps Ahasuerus thought that letting his wife loose with unlimited expense account, credit cards, throw the biggest party you can ever dream of, woman, have a great time. Maybe he thought that that was her love language. That's what she wanted. But at the end of it, when he asked her to come in, then the blatant disrespect that the most brilliant minds in the empire know this cannot stand. It is not right. We have to nip this thing in the bud. And so Memucan continues on, verse 19. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Medes and Persians that it be not altered. Because once a law is signed into effect of the Medes and Persians, it cannot be changed. That is the law of the Medes and Persians. Vashti shall come no more before the king Ahasuerus. If I keep silent, I will become poor. Let the king give her royal estate unto another that is more deserving than she, and when the king's decree, which he shall make, shall be published throughout the empire, for his empire is truly great, then all of the wives, not only of the kings and the princes, but all the wives in the empire, shall give their husbands honor, respect, both the great and small, to those of low degree and the most exalted. The women will honor and respect their husbands if you do this. Now, this advisement pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Memucan. He, if I remain silent, I will become poor, sent letters unto all the king's provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. And there are many languages. There are many cultures that this has got to go out according to the law of the Medes and Persians, so that everyone is made aware of this. And then when these kings take their wives back to their empires and this gets spread abroad, they are going to relate what happened in the capital, in Shushan, at the end of this 6-month World Fair party. And so, he sent letters into all the king's provinces, and to every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house. That the man should be the head of the house, and that it should be published according to the language of every people. We're going to take a break for just a moment to give you an opportunity to participate in this ministry. We are being broadcast in over 127 countries around the world. And this is amazing because I just realized this, 127 countries, and that is how many countries and kingdoms were under the reign of Ahasuerus. We are in 127 countries speaking the truth of the gospel of the kingdom, making people aware that the Torah is valid. It didn't pass away. Yeshua didn't come to destroy it. He came to verify it, to live it, and to clarify it as the prophet of whom Moses spoke. And we are getting the gospel of the kingdom out to the world so that people are delivered from man-made religion. No matter what man made it up, no matter what men concocted it, we are going back to the word of the Almighty and being obedient to it, living by His word and by the Spirit. And this is your opportunity to give, to be part of this ministry. And as we are reaching out to you, now you have the opportunity and the blessing of giving so that we can reach out to others like you who are hungering and thirsting after righteousness. We'll give you just a couple moments and we'll be back with you. And now we have a chapter break. I think the chapter break is really in the wrong place here. We have the edict that is going out, a law, according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, that men should bear rule in their homes, that women should respect their husbands, and of course, if it's going to be a pleasant household, It doesn't even need to be said that men must love their wives. And that's the reason that a man and a woman come together to begin with in the first place, is because of the love, the affection that they have to each other. But again, that love has to be nourished by the husband, and the respect has to be nourished by the wife toward her husband. And because this didn't take place, now Vashti is vanquished. The most beautiful woman outwardly, but inside there is something deeply wrong with this woman, and she is not fit to be the bride of the king. And we now go into what transpires because of this, and this is why I believe this chapter marking really is in the wrong place. It was all added by men later anyway. So we're going to continue on. After these things, when the wrath of the king Ahasuerus, if I remain silent, I would now be poor, he was appeased. The wrath of the king was appeased. And this is now 3 to 4 years later. According to chapter 2, verse 16, by the time that Hadassah is brought into the court of the king, it says it is now the 7th year of the reign of the king. His party, in which Vashti was vanquished, was back in the 3rd year of the reign of the king. Now Esther is brought in the 7th year. So this is between 3 and 4 years after Vashti is vanquished. And it says that he remembered Vashti and what she had done. And this is serious. Now, he has other concubines. He's in no hard shape for female companionship, but still there is something missing. He needs a bride who is worthy to be the queen, and he realizes that he made a big mistake the first time, that beauty is not everything. It's going to take much more in order for someone to be with him as he rules the empire. And so he remembered what Vashti had done, and even though his wrath was subsided, he knew that he had made a mistake. And there is probably a lot of heartache that went along with this, because Vashti doesn't indicate that she was executed, but no one else can have her. She is in seclusion. She is never going to see the king's face again. She is, all of her needs are taken care of, but she herself is not living much of a luxurious life, knowing that she will never have the companionship of a man. And he remembered what was decreed against her. In verse 2 it says, "Then said the king's servants that ministered to him, let there be fair, young, beautiful virgins sought for the king. And let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that there may gather together all of the beautiful young virgins unto Shushan the palace, to the house of the women, under the custody of Hege, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the women. And let their things for purification be given them. And let the maiden which pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti." Instead of this ravishing beauty trophy wife that you picked out the first time, you need to find a young, beautiful virgin that pleases the king. And this thing that they said pleased the king, and he did so. See, this time he is now going to look for heart. He's going to look for intellect. He's going to look for a soulmate. And this is what's going to then bring us into the rest of the story, because the next verse says, "Now in Shushan the palace, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai." That's where we're going to pick up next week on this. But see, in order to get the context, in order to get the feel of what is going on, we have to understand, this is not modern day America. This is not a Greek world. This is basically an Eastern, an Oriental, an Arab world in which these people are living in. And one of the greatest helps to understand the Bible is to get back into the land, the language, the culture of the people, so that it can fill in, so that you're not just reading words on a page. Like when I was describing the couches, $10,000 worth of raw material itself, and having examples of this. See, living in the land of Israel, I have been led down paths to things that I would never, ever have even thought about going. I would never think about purchasing an expensive servants cover like this for my television programs, but it was given as a gift. And at $600 a meter, I wouldn't have been able to spend that. At the time that I got this, we weren't even spending 6 shekels to ride on a bus. We would walk 3 miles instead of spending 6 shekels, because 6 shekels was like $1.25 back then. And so, we were living very frugally. But yet the Almighty has his way of leading us down paths because he wants his word communicated to this generation. And so living in the land of Israel, I can then connect you with the land, the language, the culture. I can strip away a Western Gentile perspective and invite you to explore the Bible from a Hebrew, a Jewish perspective. And so that when we read the Gospels and the Gospel chronology, when we read that, I'm able to fill things in that could never happen had I not spent the last 15 years living in the land of Israel. But to understand this, I want to tell you a story that was translated from Arabic into the French language back in the 1700s, and then from French into English. After that, in the early 1800s, it was then translated from Arabic into English, which was a much better job than going through these 2 steps from Arabic to French to English. But it is now known as 1001 Arabian Nights. It was originally 1001 Nights, but now it's become known as 1001 Arabian Nights. And I want to tell you a little bit about this story because it's kind of a parallel. It is a fiction, but this is basically how the story goes. There was a king in the empire. His brother was the emperor, but he was the king in his area and over his country. And he went out on a hunting trip and decided, after he had gotten out of town, they were camped, he decided that he was going to sneak back into town because he just loved his wife so much he wanted to see her that night. So he came back into town and found her to be unfaithfully embraced with the lowest of servants. He was absolutely infuriated. There was no doubt that, he saw what was going on. They were in the boudoir together, and he took out his scimitar and killed them both, took their bodies, threw them out the window into the dry moat outside of the city. Then he immediately got out of the city, went back out to the camp as if nothing happened. But he was very depressed. And he decided that he was going to then go see his brother. As a matter of fact, the grand vizier of his brother sent great wealth to him and an invitation, please come visit him. And so he went to visit his brother, and his brother entertained him. He's the emperor. He's like Ahasuerus. He's like Xerxes. And so he's entertaining his brother, but yet something is wrong. And a hunting trip is again planned. And so he said, I just don't feel good. Please go on. I'm going to stay behind. Well, at that point, he is overlooking the garden. And as soon as his brother, the emperor, leaves, all of his concubines and his wives they go out into the garden, and over the walls climb all the lowest of servants, and they are all engaged in an extramarital affair. Let's say it that way. And when he sees this, then he realizes that he is not the most pitiful person upon the earth. No, his brother, the emperor, has the very same thing. And so the next day, he's in uplifted spirits. He goes out and joins the hunting camp. And when he gets out there, he's kind of elated. And his brother then asks him, why are you so happy? What happened? You were so depressed before. Please, you have to tell me. I demand it. You are my subject. You're my brother, but you're my subject. You have to tell me why you're so depressed. And so finally, he told him the story of how he took his scimitar and in one swipe killed his wife and his lover, and that's what made him so depressed. And the emperor felt so bad for him. And then he said, but why now are you so positive? And he would not let him go. He finally said, I'm only telling you this because you are commanding me, but this is what had happened. When I went back, I saw your wife and all your concubines involved in the same thing. And the emperor couldn't believe it. And so he said, okay, follow me. They undercover snuck back in, got into the apartment where the king was staying, and then, as just before the sun set, then they saw the entire thing take place. Now the emperor is absolutely furious, and he has his wife strangled, all of the concubines killed, and then he decides, what am I going to do? Are there any faithful women in the empire? And so he decides that every night, every day, I'm going to marry another virgin. And in the morning, my grand vizier is then going to strangle them. That's going to keep them from being unfaithful to me. And so he does this week after week, month after month. The most beautiful maidens in the empire are brought before him. He marries them. And then the following morning, after the wedding night, the grand vizier has the job of strangling them to death. Probably not with his bare hands, probably with a cord, we don't know. Didn't give us the detail in the Arabian Nights. And so then, the Grand Vizier's daughter, after the weeping and wailing of all the inhabitants of all the cities in the king's realm, the people are terrified because one after another, every single day, another beautiful virgin is executed. So she went to her father and said, and the Grand Vizier's daughter was educated in philosophy. She had read all of the books in the empire. She was absolutely brilliant. She had a photographic memory. She was not only a treasure in beauty, she was a treasure in intellect. She understood the times. She understood how to communicate. And she was the absolute treasure of her father. And she also had a younger daughter, and she did not want her younger daughter, her younger sister, did not want her executed in the same way. So she went to her father and begged him, please present me as the next bride of the emperor. And so finally, her father relented because she said she had a plan. So her father relented, went to the emperor, and the emperor couldn't believe it. That this treasure of the Grand Vizier is now going to be his wife, and knowing that the next morning the Grand Vizier is the responsibility of strangling his oldest precious daughter. Such an honor. And so the wedding night came. And the young virgin said, my lord, allow my youngest sister to come. This is our last night. Let her be in the next chamber and let her come in and be with me because this is our last night together. And he relented. He said, yes, because she was such a special girl. He could not deny the daughter of the Grand Vizier this simple one last pleasure. And so she made a deal with her younger sister. An hour before sunrise, you wake up and say, sister, tell me again, one last time, tell me a story. And so she woke her up, and the emperor was in the room and heard the whole thing. And so she begins telling her this story.
And it is so captivating. It is so enthralling. She ends with, and this, it gets even more incredible, more glorious. This story becomes even more glorious. And so at this point, she says to the emperor, please allow me to live one more night so that I can tell the rest of the story to my younger sister. And the emperor was so enthralled in this story, he said, why, yes, one more night so you can finish the story. He couldn't wait to hear the story. Couldn't wait. And so the next night, she then, the same thing, an hour before sunrise, she begins telling the rest of the story. And this goes on the next night and the next night. Without a question, the emperor says, please, I want to hear more of the story. And so for 1,001 nights, she weaves these intricate stories together that never end. They tie all together. And so you end up with the story of Sinbad the sailor and Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. You end up with all these stories over these 1,001 nights. And it is, ladies and gentlemen, these stories are so incredible, so fascinating. A lot of them, they made their way to Disney, but these are not children's stories, okay? The original unabridged is not children's reading by any stretch of the imagination, but they are such incredible stories that take you right back into that day and time. Because there is not a whole lot of technological difference between the times of Xerxes and the time of, they estimate, of Charlemagne in Europe, of which the 1,001 Nights were actually written at that time. But there's not a lot of technology difference. And so when you read this story, it just fills it in with so much depth and so much character. And so it is day after day, night after night. And at the end of 1,001 nights, when she comes to the conclusion of this intricate, interwoven story, she now has a young child, another baby on the way, and there is no way that the emperor is going to lose the absolute treasure of his life. She is not only striking in beauty, but everything about her is a virtuous woman. And this gives just a little bit of light into this situation of what is about to transpire in Babylon, in Shushan the palace. Because we are going to see that this is not fiction, ladies and gentlemen. This is real life. The name of the Almighty, Yod-He-Vav-He, does not appear anywhere in this text. But you can see his direction from the throne room of heaven in everything that goes on. And this is, in their day, the one world government, the one world empire. The law of the Medes and Persians is what stands, and we are going to see that the Jews are going to be singled out for complete extermination. Why? Because they keep the Torah. They worship not the emperor, but they worship the one true God. And because of this very thing, because they worship the one true God, we're going to see an Agagite, the offspring of King Agag, is going to put in play an extermination policy to wipe out every last person, and including the bride of the king. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what is playing out again in this generation. All the nations of the world are coming together again. A novus ordo seclorum, a totalitarian viewpoint of masters and slaves, of a Greek mindset of those who are the guardian class and the laity. And we are going to see that the Almighty's hand is not short in this day and time. that the Almighty is able to preserve his people. He can orchestrate things beyond the wildest imagination. And when you see what the Almighty does in response to those who decide they are going to risk their life to do the right thing, you are going to see that heaven is on the side of the righteous, and that he has a plan to preserve and to save his people in the most desperate of times, when it looks like there is no hope, when the people have no way to protect themselves, every bit of ability to arm themselves and protect themselves against what is going to come to pass, their complete annihilation. It turns completely about because the Almighty is still in charge of the universe. So join us again next week as we go into Hadassah and the purification. Enough with the myrrh already. Now, I would like to leave you with this blessing. This is the blessing that the priest of Aaron, the Aaronic priesthood, were commanded to put the name of the Almighty, Yod He Vav He, upon the people. And when they speak this particular blessing, the Almighty will hear from heaven, and he will then bless his people. See, I don't need to know what your problems are. I don't need to know what your needs are. All I need to do is be obedient to what the Scripture says to do. And I'm not going to speak this blessing under the authority of the Aaronic priesthood, far from it. I'm going to speak it under a far greater authority. The authority of the priesthood of the Melchizedek, the King of righteousness, Yeshua, who is the high priest forever after the order of the Melchizedek, and he has made us priests and kings. And I will speak this blessing, and you then can receive this blessing. I am going to hold my hands in the way that the priest would hold their hands to signify Yud, He, Vav, He, when it became illegal for the priest to actually speak the name. But they would hold their hands in this form. Now, of course, many of you recognize this from Star Trek. Leonard Nimoy, Live Long and Prosper. He's Jewish, a Cohen, okay? This is the intergalactic blessing, live long and prosper. But really, the Aaronic blessing is so much deeper. It is so much richer than that, because this is what the Almighty said to do. And so now, if you'll receive this blessing, I now speak it under the authority of the Kohen Gadol forever, after the order of the Melchizedek. Yivarechecha Yehovah v'yishmerecha. Ya'ir Yehovah panav elecha v'chuneka. Yisa Yehovah panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. B'shem Yeshua HaMashiach Sar Shalom. Yehovah bless you and keep you. Yehovah make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yehovah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. In the name of Yeshua, the Prince of Peace. Amen and amen. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov. Have a good week.